Cheers, Hayden. Welcome to Coffee Conversations. You guys are in for a treat. Hayden, I was thinking about you the other day and thinking about it's so interesting how random moments in life bring you such special and important people. I'm so thankful I went to that networking event that I was dreading, and it's been awesome.
I know.
To know you, and you have made such an impact in my life, both personally and professionally. So I'm excited for more people to get to know you. Welcome, Hayden.
Hi, everybody. I know, Stace. I can't believe it. It's been so many years now. Like when you think back,
the funny thing is we met in 2021. We've only met in person once.
I know. And I feel like I know you so well. Like we're so vested in each other's lives. I talk to you all the time.
I know, internet friends. It's the best. Well, welcome. You guys, anyone who's listening is in for a treat because honestly, Hayden, you are so inspiring professionally, personally, as a mother, as a business owner. And I feel like every time you talk, people can learn. And we were talking before and I was like, wait a minute, no, save this. Hayden, save this. So diving in, I always like to go back before we go forward. And so I like to start with the fun question of your first ever job. So it doesn't have to be like a real job. It could be like the job you had as a teenager and then your current job.
So you're going to love this. I know you will. It'll super resonate. You know what? You might actually remember me talking about it a smidge, but my first ever job was working with special needs children. And part of my my why was I volunteered with our special recreation and got really interested in understanding more about autism. I had a cousin who was autistic, may get a little emotional. And really wanted to understand it. And so I really dove in head first, was working with all different, differently abled people and doing different age groups and activities. And after a lot of volunteer work, they offered me a job. And so I got really vested and started working there. And actually at one point, I considered becoming a ABA therapist and training with Autism Speaks. And so I did that for a little while prior to actually going to college for my current career path. And so that will always hold a really near and dear place in my heart. And I spent very many years, I think it was almost 6 in total, volunteering and working with special recreations and just really getting to love everything about working in the organization and the events and stuff they put on and just how it makes you feel to just be surrounded by so many incredible people. So
yeah, I have known you since 2021, but I did not know that. But it's not surprising because you're always so about empowering people and lifting people up, and you just change lives. So that doesn't surprise me. And currently, while different, there is some probably threads that are similar.
Yes.
What do you do currently?
So currently I've transitioned a little bit, but so after I was working with special needs and, that was during my time where I was going to college and I started pre-med. I was super math science nerd, really, really good. Took calculus in high school, took it electively for fun then in college, even though I didn't need it. I'd actually finished all of my math and science courses when I arrived at college and was really ready to be pre-med. Took one look at organic chemistry and said, not for me, and switched to a creative path. And so I really fell in love with my artistic side and started to explore graphics and film and PR and advertising and then marketing. And when I got in and got to see somebody designs how this is going to look and what the logo is and where this is going to go and why it matters, it just absolutely took me. And this was when social media was still very new and I was really the queen of it, MySpace and Zanga. I was the person behind the scenes, breaking up the code and redesigning pages for people. Yes. I had a ton of followers even then. And I was really interested in the photography and building the brand for myself. My mother totally didn't get it, which is probably why she's not around now. But it helped parlay me into a world where I started getting into sports and makeup and a lot of the big league industries and marketing where I grew to be a CMO and then reached a point where it was time to exit and do my own thing. And thus HVH Media and Marketing was born among 21 North and some of the other things that I'm also working on. But HVH is my true baby and where I spend most of my heart and time. And we do social media marketing, influencer marketing, digital marketing, all the things marketing to build and make brands incredible that actually convert. That's the fun part.
That's the
care about those conversions. decisions.
And I want to talk about that, but before, the former teacher in me can't help but want to pause and step back and talk about the STEM aspect. I love hearing, I don't know if I remember that, or I love hearing someone that's so talented in this artistic and, digital space also had this love for STEM. I think that, there's these messages for young people that you have to choose or that you can't be good at both. And I actually think the fact that you're strategically thinking it from a math brain is what makes you so talented in terms of thinking about it above and beyond just the creative aspect, thinking about that bottom line. That strategy piece, I think, comes from your STEM side.
You're 100%. And I think people notice it about me because when people come to our agency, they always say, and this comes up a lot, they go, "You're very different than other agencies."
Yes.
And I was like, we are. I was like, but everybody else is doing it one way. And in order to stand out and be great, we need to have our own path. And the only way to have your own path is to combine all of these different facets that actually make something phenomenal, right? It can't just be creative. You do need to apply an analytical side. And if you don't have both of those things, you need to make sure you're hiring for it, because all of these pieces help to build and move brands forward. And so you're right. I mean, that's what I love about you being a teacher is you totally get it. We always nerd out over the numbers and the metrics, but we also appreciate the creativity. So
absolutely. And I think that you shouldn't have to choose. You can be great at both. And I think that's an important message that young people need to hear. And, that whole thinking about the analytics, I do think that's what makes you different. There's so many marketing agencies out there that it's vanity metrics, right? Where it's like, that's lovely. But at the end of the day, if your brand's not making more money,
then what are we doing? I have this conversation so often with clients. Some people really get it and they love it. I actually was just talking to a client yesterday and he just gets it. He's like, these views don't mean anything. He's like, one day we could have a really low viewership and have tons of leads. He's like, it really does. It matters where the stuff is showing up. And I was like, the more you understand that and you look at the dollars, the better off you'll be, because social media is designed to make you feel like the unpopular kid when you're not getting views or likes or whatever. And I'm like, are you making money? And they're like, well, yeah. And I'm like, that's what matters. It's who's seeing it. And some people get so caught up in the metrics that they don't even care about who's watching and if they're going to convert. They're like, I just want the views. And I'm like, that's fine. And that's brand awareness. It has value. But if it's not your avatar and you can't convert them, well, how long are you going to be able to sustain that? And I try and get people to understand that social media, it's a business in itself, right? Like it wants to make money. So anything that's happening organically on your behalf, you have to be overly strategic about your messaging approach and where it's going, and really be thinking about that person instead of just trying to catch likes, catch views. That stuff doesn't convert the same way as being honed in on one specific niche and going, this is my person, this is how I reach them. And I don't care about the numbers, I care about how it converts.
Yes. That's why I was so impressed by you, and even hired, HVH to do social media for our med spa. And I definitely saw the increase in the revenue. I think that was really cool to be able to translate the social media directly to our dollars. I love that. And getting to know you better. Well, if someone's out there listening and is like, I'm great at math and I love strategy and I love marketing and all this stuff, and I want to start my agency, what are some lessons learned that through the years? What advice do you have?
So I love talking about this, and I know you and I talk about this too, but I feel like I really don't like the just start mentality. When people just go, just start. I'm not going to tell you where, but figure it out. I'm like, that's so unfair, because just start isn't anything other than some motivation. It's a pep talk. And being very frank, there are tough times in starting, especially for someone like me who is a true bootstrapper. I mean, no loans, my own dollars. Like, I have built and scaled HVH completely on my own dime. And I've never ever taken any assistance or investments. And so knowing that, I can really speak to the fact that the growth process, you have to be overly strategic. You need to be aligned with what you are going to be focused on. Like, don't try and be for everyone, because being for everyone is like being for no one. You're not going to appeal to someone. It is perfectly okay to go, this is exactly who I am. This is exactly who I'm going after. And think about those dollars, right? If it takes X amount of clients for you to reach a certain metric that month, for you to sustain, right? Okay, well, here's where we need to be before we can start to scale again. There is a process of kind of almost like that stepping stones when you're trying to do it yourself. And I've done it that way. And I've definitely now received tons of people who are interested in investing and all of that, but I've continued to tell them that I don't want the help. And that's just for this agency. Other agencies you want to invest in, that's fine. We'll do that. But part of it is because you learn something about your own resiliency that can only be taught through those moments of how can I figure this out? And I feel so much more empowered in my personal life and who I am as a mother by knowing that there have been moments where I'm teetering on the edge and I didn't give up on me or I didn't give up on my business. And if I can give one piece of advice is get good mentors, make sure that when you're starting, you have a good, solid starting point. You're not just starting because someone, pushed you and said, get going. And then trust yourself. You can do this, but hold on to those moments because navigating your way out, that learning lesson will always come with you. So when you deal with it again, you'll know exactly what to do and no one will have to help you. You'll be like, I got this.
And it definitely does build that confidence. And, everyone hears the whole be clear on who you're serving, exactly what you just said, but so few people when they start actually take that advice, right? Because it's scary to stay in that lane, right? Yeah. This idea of like, well, marketing, social media, I can do social media for everyone. And if I narrow it down to, let's say, cosmetics or automobile, whatever the industries are, then what if I don't find them? I think that happens a lot. It takes a lot of confidence to do what you're saying. So often when people start and they don't have that confidence.
And that's very fair. No, you're so right. And I think to clarify, because you're right, I should explain that better because it could be too general. Sometimes it's not even picking an industry, it's picking a piece of your marketing you're going to focus on because marketing is so vast. So if you're like, I know I can knock it out of the park with social media, which is what we've honed in on. Yeah. It's like, stick there because you can still take on a breadth of clients, but you understand that your system of what you're good at and making things work is going to fit in a certain realm of social media. And maybe it's not digital because like digital is a whole other layer, or it's not influencer marketing. And it's okay to say, hey, we don't do that. We do this, but we do it awesome. And you should be awesome. You should be great at what you do. And so for me, I feel like when people are trying to define that, it doesn't necessarily have to be so industry focused, because if you believe in whatever you're offering and you can offer it at a price that's still competitive but not devaluing you, it's a home run. And so I think that was a lot of what I did, is like I was able to get my foot in the door because I had my own application of it, right? My own brand itself was being marketed well. I had proof of concept. If you don't know where to start, maybe start with you. That's really the best thing.
I think that's great advice because especially if you have a marketing agency, so often people who own marketing agencies, like the cobbler's kid, right? It's like, well, I'm doing it for everyone else. I don't have time for me. But where's the first thing that people are going to look at? Your stuff. And you do that brilliantly. Share any tips or, how were you able to build this incredible platform on multiple, platforms?
A lot of risk, but also I didn't just go, hey, I'm going to build my business. I said, hey, I'm going to build a persona around what the archetype that I provide from a physiognomy perspective. And I took it and I put it out there and I was okay.
Yeah, you owned it.
I think people who knew me, they were very, very aware that it was a persona, right? Because people who knew me were like, this is absolutely Hayden going, this is what she looks like. This is the quick and easy demographic, the avatar she can scoop up. Here's how she's going to do it. And then she's going to convert it. And I did. I took myself, I put it in a role. I put it out there. I took a lot of risks. I had a lot of backlash, but still a lot of followers. And I built an incredibly loyal community. I mean, even to this day, my community, and I love them so much. It's like, I talk about them like they're my friends because they convert incredibly. They are devoted. If I hopped on my pages right now and said, this person was mean to me, I think they'd all go to bat for me.
Oh, I've seen it happen. It's true.
And that's a great feeling. And cultivating community is something Stacy knows way more about than me because
stop it. No.
So good at it. Oh. Yes, Stacy is the queen of cultivation, and she knows brilliant people. And like having someone like Stacy in your corner working on those pieces has been like a huge benefit to me, because I can't even tell you how many times I've been like, I have this problem. She's like, I have this person as a solution. And I'm like, great. And all of the connections are like the most brilliant people on the planet. So I always have appreciated how you always come to bat for me in that way.
Well, you're too kind. You're going to make me start tearing up. Well, You know, I've always admired that for you, is that you're unapologetically you, right? And just to your point, showing up, and I think that builds a lot of trust, right? I think that your community goes to bat for you because they trust you. I've seen you turn down business. I've seen you stand up for yourself. I've seen you do a lot of things. And what I'm realizing, the longer I've been in business, the longer I've met people, is that that's actually a rare.
Yeah, you're right. And it's funny when people tell me this stuff, because I think I've been doing it for so long that I've just gotten comfortable being myself, because it's too hard to be anything else. And I think people are so afraid to be themselves because ourselves is imperfect, right?
Very much so.
But so are great brands. If we really, really think about it, they have imperfections. They have things about them that are flaws to people who aren't their market. And that's the important piece. You don't want everyone, and that's okay. You can carve out your niche. It's okay for these people to go, I don't like this product. Good.
Yeah.
Probably wasn't for you. I don't want to have to work to grind to convince somebody. Even to this day, one of the funniest things, and I've had this happen multiple times, but HVH doesn't sell. Okay, this is the craziest thing. We do not sell. We do not pitch clients. We are scaling the craziest amount of scaling that you can ever imagine for me. But like from a boutique agency perspective, we are always in growth mode, and we don't sell and we don't advertise. When I say these words to people, they go, what are you doing? And I'm like, we're just being authentic. We're doing a good job. We're putting what we're doing and capable of out there, and it works. And so that's why a lot of times people try and acquire me, because they're like, what is this woman doing behind the scenes? And I'm like, no.
Where's the magic crystal ball? What is she doing?
I just went, we're going to be good at something. And then we're going to hone in and be great at it. And then we're going to provide it where it's at a good price point that people can say yes to and feel good about. We're going to get people results, and then they're going to be happy, and we're going to have a business, and then I'm going to be good to my people. They're going to have a place to work that they love to be a part of. And it's like that authenticity, people forget how valuable that piece is. It's like, just be a person. That's what all of these people are. We're all just trying to make money, survive, and build lives with our families. And we have to do that with the money here. So it's like, let's just be honest. Let's put all the good out there. I don't know. For me, and I know you're the same way, authenticity is like the most undervalued thing. Like, I just feel like people do not give it enough credit for how much it can be lucrative in your life if you can just harness it.
Totally. And I think it comes from in the past, right? I think there was this pressure in the past to show up and hustle, and
you're right,
not show behind the scenes and talk about things they've already happened. Nothing drives me crazy. I know as entrepreneurs, we need to pay, but talking about it as it already happened is something that I think a lot of entrepreneurs have this feeling they need to do, like fake it until you make it, which I think actually does the opposite. People can smell it. And even if they can't smell it, once they experience it, it's like, oh, well, this person I can't trust.
No, you're so right. And I actually talked about this because we had some older clients that it wasn't long enough ago, right? We're probably talking like even a decade ago, where it was show up and make yourself appear better than you are so people trust you, right? Like if you're a small cosmetics brand, look like a big one. And then there was this huge rise of all these tiny little brands that, you know, they were in their house and they were making lip glosses and they were like, look, I just made this. Does anyone want to buy it? And people thought it was so heartwarming, and people get behind it. And we had a big pivot moment, even internally, where I said, let's scrap all of this. Yes. Like, let's remind people not to buy followers. Let's remind people not to feel obligated. You know, there are some places where trust matters. Like I had a couple of clients, you know, in the medical profession and things like that, or even a large computer brand that came to me where we actually did page acquisitions for them because they needed to start somewhere, because they almost wouldn't be trusted that they were them if they didn't have that. But to some extent, I really feel like you're right. We've reached a new age where authenticity is heartwarming and it converts because people can relate to it, and everybody wants to see themselves in somebody else, see themselves in their brand, their journey. I think that that's why so many people even connect with some of my stuff and why they want to support me. They've seen the growth process, and I've never ever made anything seem like a brag. Like every step of the way has struggles. There's always something. And like, I feel like people are too ashamed to share that stuff, and they should more. It makes us all feel connected.
I agree. And I want to honor, because the part of the fun of being live is people are able to ask questions. So I want to honor Eric over here, asked the question. He said, in your experience, how long does it take a young agency to niche in a particular industry? That is such a good and difficult question.
Such a good question. Yeah. Okay. So Eric, I actually love you for asking this. I can tell that you obviously have great expertise because you know that this can be answered multiple ways. I will only tell you from my experience that creating my own niche probably took 2 to 3 years.
Yeah, it takes longer than anyone realizes.
It really did. And it's because of exactly what Stacy brought up. When you're starting as an entrepreneur, and like I said, hindsight's always 20/20, right? Now I can go, you should do this. But when we started, I was like, I will market whatever you need, sir. Do you need
pay my bills?
I can help you. But seriously, I really, when I first started, I took business I shouldn't have, clients that abuse the crap out of our agency. Because they were paying us, they were like, do this, also this, and we want to make $1 million. I'm like, I'm making like $1,000 right now. Like I'm barely breaking even. I'm just trying to get some proof of concept here.
Right.
And so when I started early on, I mean, it was that low of a metric. So it took almost 2 years of dealing with abuse, realizing it affected my own scalability, going, I'm actually hindering my own potential growth and more monetary gain by not getting more niche focused. And so I sat here and I went, okay, how can I, within my own comfort, right, of learning, go, we're going to say no to this and we're going to hope something better comes. So some of my first firings actually happened where I went, I'm going to cut this person. I'm going to take the hit financially. I'm going to pray. I'm going to send some prayers out that something better will come. And you know what? It always did, because when you make room in your life for things that are not part of that vision and you're not in an area you're focused on, you free up time that is way more valuable to focus on what you are trying to align with. And so over the course of 2 to 3 years, I got very, very niche focused on exactly what we focus on, which is we're really great at social media. That is our focus. We will take on brands in a lot of different areas. We try to farm off ones where I'm like, I'm not going to be great at this. I'll send you to a great agency that I already have as a connection. But the other thing too is like, we still offer some of these other services and we have people internally that help. But if someone wants a true expert and not an add-on service, I send them somewhere else. And that's why key partnerships are important too.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a good answer. And it's so true, right? Like we know we're supposed to niche, but who's actually being honest about how difficult it is? And that there is going to be times where you have to take money to pay your bills, but it does, to your point, and we were talking about this before we started, firing clients is a real thing. And again, it's a very scary thing. And it sounds like early days you took on everyone and eventually, fired some and moved on. Yep. And you were talking about your current growth and that, that's something you may or may not need to do again. Talk a little bit more about firing clients, because it has to be one of the scariest things, but something that so few people actually do when they need to do it.
Nope, it's so true. And as a business, you have this guilt of, you're supposed to be, oh, you're so welcome, Eric. Thank you so much for writing. Very nice of you. When you are growing and when you own a business, there's so much guilt attached to firing, because you're basically saying someone is willing to pay me money and I'm too good for it in some capacity, right? Like it feels like that. But the reality is someone is paying me money, and if they're not in alignment with what we've been contracted to do, and it's creating stress for your people internally, or they're consuming more time because of some of their requests and things like that, well, now they're actually making it unfair for your other clients who are actually not being mismanaged. And so for me, I think about that, and I've had conversations with some of the managers internally, like how much of this is consuming more of your time than you need? And once it passes a certain threshold, if we can't be transparent about what that feels like and how to get that under control, it can really create monetary problems because you tie up extra time. That person's likely using way more than whatever their retainer is. And if you think about it, it's actually unfair to other clients because that means it's coming from other dollars in the agency, which would be other clients, which I can't allow. Right. And so everyone needs to get their allotted time. And so I nip a lot of that stuff in the butt. And you know, although I usually can wrangle it myself by having conversations like, this is what you're going to get. This is what the contract is. This is not me being mean. This is me running a business. I love you as a person. Because many of these clients, by the way, that do get fired, some of them I like as people. They're just not great to work with. And so I like to be very honest that it's okay that we're not aligned sometimes. You know, I have a couple of clients I can think of right now that, you know, have been with me for a long time. And they personally want to work with me all the time. And the hardest thing about that is I own the agency. So if I am personally spending my time on just your account, which is totally unfair to all the other people at the agency, I'm not working on something very important for the agency's growth. And it's sometimes also very devaluing of how they perceive me because I'm not a specialist. I'm not a manager. I'm not one of the coordinators. Like I'm not those things. I hire great people for that. And it's actually telling me you don't trust me to hire great people. And I love and trust my people. That's why I have them. And it makes them feel bad. So I think about all these different pieces, they all come together. And, you know, as I scale too, it puts me in a position where I can go, what's no longer fitting? What have we taken on that maybe served us at a previous time that isn't fitting with how we're moving forward so that we can really grow and benefit from what we're trying to do? And, you know, that's definitely a conversation we're having now. I've been very blessed, and I actually I'm going to give some people some shout outs. So Dr. Brian Harris did my incredible smile. And
yes, I watched that on Instagram. You guys need to follow her on Instagram. She shares all these things. Yes, that transformation is so incredible.
He's so wonderful. And he's like somebody I like super respect in the industry. I'll have to connect you with him because he's super cool. He's like cosmetic dentist by trade, but like really he's like this mastermind. He does, you know, marketing, owns software that helps streamline things behind the scenes for dental community. He has a cohort, all these things. And he actually invited me recently to speak, and I connected with some of the most incredible dental professionals. Like I didn't realize how much I would love dentists. I love that. Like if I could all of the medical professionals, I'm telling you right now, dentists are some of the coolest people, or otherwise it's this group, because I got to speak in this group, made great connections. I've been working with a lot of like the dental community now, and they're awesome. I love working with them. I've actually personally been providing my time. My agency works with them. But something like that was so valuable to me because, you know, although I get a lot of leads that are coming in just from word of mouth and our website, this was such a quick way to engage with a community that I know I could do a great job for as our agency. And that invite and that personal like approval from Dr. Brian Harris was so important. And I've had a couple of those actually come up. Like he was one. I actually had a pest control company, Natura Pest Control. They have a great cohort and community of thousands of people. They actually invited me in. I've been doing some work for them, and it's an owners group. So it's so nice when I'm able to just activate a community of decision makers. It's very quick to scale. And so I'm just very appreciative of some of the connections I've made that have seen me do a good job for them or seen the work that I've done, and then trust me enough to bring me in as an expert. And I just had to give them both shout outs because they really did. They helped me make some quick pivots, some quick scales, or quick scaling for my business, and working with the right avatar so that it's like a lot of the same, but we're doing different things for each, and everyone's gonna win. And like I said, like the nicest, most awesome people on the planet that like my people love showing up to work for.
Yes. Well, there's so many things going through my head. Like one of the things I think is that you experience.
Yes.
And you can genuinely speak to it. Same with you. Remember you get excited and passionate about something that's so genuine and it comes through. And I think that's part of the attraction, right? People want to work with people who know what they're talking about, who can genuinely talk about it from a place of like, I did this, I'm endorsing this, and not just doing it for the sake of making money.
Oh yeah. I mean, but that's again comes back to authenticity, what we talked about. Like I will literally not work with a single person that I don't believe in. Like if I'm talking about something on my page, and I've told people this before, like if I don't believe in your product, I'm not the person to market it, because I'm not going to authentically be able to speak to it. We're going to be thinking about it too methodically, and it's not going to translate. And so that's another thing that people can trust about coming to my stuff, or even my agency, is like, if we're talking about your stuff, like we believe we can make it happen for you. Now, whether or not you want to cooperate on how you think that needs to happen, that's a whole different story. But like the people who buy in, they have such great results. Talking about Natura Pest Control, I hope people go follow them, even if you're not in the area. They are so funny. Go watch their content. If you think pest control is like, oh, pest control is boring, not them. They are so funny. They have so much fun. If we pitch them an idea, they are game for it. And their stuff, it just goes. We just got somebody writing in asking them if they wanted a TV spot on a major television network. It's like, and they don't have a ton of followers. We just started, but like the community is just being cultivated so quickly because they know their brand, they know who they are, and they're like, let's do this, let's scale.
Yes. Well, and I think it goes back to Eric's question about, niche, whatever you want to say. It's the things that you can really get excited. You're not doing it for the sake of doing it. You're not just picking for the sake of picking. You're picking because you really believe in it in your heart of hearts. And I think that's huge. Something else that went through my mind that I wanted to circle back to is having tough. I've seen you and I've experienced you in different situations, navigating things that for most people would be tough conversations, right? And or like could potentially repel someone, or just, all the things, like, for example, firing somebody who's a friend of yours, right? Someone that you like. I've seen you do it in a lot of different situations in a lot of different ways, and be direct, but yet still be so likable in the process of that. Sense. So I'm curious, if that was a learned skill, how you're able to have the tough conversations.
Okay,
what advice do you have in terms of that? Because so few people do it. A lot of people avoid it or suck at it.
Yeah, no, I love you because you're right. But you want to know why? It's because I genuinely always put myself in their position. I go, how can we tactfully have this conversation where I'm not talking at you, I'm not firing you. We're having an honest discussion about the fact that we're not compatible. And I'm taking some ownership there, because even though I might feel like I have an answer, it's not a solution for this person, and that's okay, but that's the ownership I can take. My ego cannot be in this. And ego's tough. I have ego problems even too on stuff, and I try and be really soft with myself because I have a hard time when I can't deliver for somebody when I thought I could. But that's part of anything in business. Sometimes we go in with the best of intentions, and it's okay, like dating, to go, we gave this our best shot. And to me, any time spent on anything, it wasn't lost. I learned something that helps me follow my niche. Like, this might not be my niche, right? Like, we're not winning at this the way I thought. And then also it teaches you a little bit about how to navigate those relationships so that you don't have to leave on bad terms. And listen, I'm not by any means, I'm not always winning. Like, I have plenty of people who have left on bad terms, and not because of me. I left nice and then they got bitter about it. I've had a couple of people I've had to fire that realized after we left that their numbers went really bad. I'm sure people were like, hello, okay, the numbers are terrible. Can you reconsider? And I will tell you something else. There's no amount of money that I will not stand on my own principles. Once I ethically and morally leave something, I've never gone back to an ex, and I don't go back to ex clients. And that's not to be mean. It's that if it didn't work out the first time, there's nothing that's going to change that's going to work out again. Even if we try and promise each other, just like in a relationship, that will be different, it just doesn't work like that. And so, but it stinks because I wish sometimes people would realize these things ahead of time and then evolve some of their own personality traits, because you're going to have these same problems like an ex. If you don't heal these things about yourself, you're going to have these same problems with somebody else. So it's like, you got to be mindful. Whatever you're paying someone, what the expectations are, all of that stuff has to be super, super clear, and I don't let it hurt my feelings. Like, you can't take things personal. Like, I'm thinking of one specific client that I know who, like, I'm pretty sure they were like, she's never allowed in here again. And I'm like, I wasn't planning to come back anyway, but especially because the reason I let them go is because they were doing some kind of shady stuff. I talked to you about that. You know exactly who this is when I'll mention after this. But they were like, she's never allowed back in here. And I'm like, So be it. Like, no bad blood from my end. If I saw you on the street, I'd say, hey, like, we're good. But like, there's certain things that I ethically and morally can't be attached to as an agency. Like, I'm not going to market people who are doing things illegal. I'm not going to market people who are doing anything behind the scenes that I don't think ethically or morally aligns with who I am as a person. If I catch wind of that, that's where we stop, and no amount of money will make me stay along for the ride on something like that.
Yeah. No, and I've seen you through the years have to navigate some tough situations, and obviously you're great at it, and you just gave amazing tips. But I also want to share for the common folk out there like myself, that it's nice to see that. Not see. I also know that sometimes you get nervous, not nervous, but you and I've had conversations before things have happened, and that you're still a human and not completely a robot and like can kill.
No.
Here's the thing I think people forget is that you can be simultaneously uncomfortable and dreading having these tough conversations and be really great at it. And so I think that that's because people would listen to you talk and all the things you just said and be like, well, I'm not her and I'm never going to be her. I get nervous. I don't like doing it. Da, 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 da.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. We all do, including Hayden.
Oh, yeah. And sometimes the nervousness is actually validation. I think it's like we have to reframe our own thinking, right? Like, you should be nervous before you do something like that. Like, are you making a good decision? And you should challenge yourself, because it's so easy to be emotional about things that you can't actually tie emotion to. So like, when I feel a nervousness or that jitter or that discomfort, or I feel fiery and I need to vent about it, I will. I have a sounding board, like a Stacy, like she and I do this all the time, where we're like, am I off base here? Like, am I really bothered by how this person spoke to me? Like, where am I at? And if we both kind of come to the same consensus of like, hey, we're two minds coming from an objective area here. Like, okay, yes, like this feels this way. This is what's happening. It's nice to kind of play it out too. Don't look at you can't go linear and you can't keep it in a box. You have to look at it situationally of how it's affecting everything. If you feel that nervousness or that discomfort and you realize it's a personal thing, well, now you have to navigate a whole separate issue. But like, I've had moments where I felt personally bothered and been my team and gone, I want to fire this person. This is how they spoke to me today. I am going to put it back on my team to decide whether or not this is actually an issue internally. And I've had them tell me sometimes, like, it's not enough of an internal issue. So what I'll do is remove myself and put somebody else on the account, right? That's a fix. And they still get to stay on. And I've done that several times.
Yeah.
So, but there's checks and balances. And I think that that's okay. But 100%, you can be eloquent at something and still be dreading every moment of it.
Well, and speaking of a sounding board, someone that I think of as one of my sounding boards that I know you've gotten to know more recently too is Alicia Huck. Shout out to Alicia Huck. We love you, Alicia Huck. And, we're talking about you scaling and we're talking about all the things you're doing. And, Alicia taught me about the term super doing. And I know when you and I met, we bonded over the fact that we're pretty good at being a super doer. But and I think that's an important thing to talk about, because people listening to you obviously are going to be blown away by what you've accomplished with your company and where it's going. But it's been neat to see you evolve through the years and how
still evolving.
You always are. But this concept of a lot of times the things that get us off the ground and get our company going are not the skills that are going to take us to the next level, and often get in our way. And one of those things that we both shared in was being a super doer, and how that's great getting a company off the ground. But how do you scale a company while having your hands in everything?
It's tough. I'm going to do another name drop because it's also been helpful. So Dan Martell actually sent me his book. I've been talking about it. I know you've seen it. So Dan Martell sent me his book, Buy Back Your Time. It is genius. I'm going to recommend it to every single person on the planet. One of my favorite things about the book is it's not general at all. He has like quotes in there that will hit pain points for any entrepreneur in here. It says things like, part of the reason it's so hard to let go of this area of your business is because you're great at it and you don't think anyone else is going to be as good. And I'm like, and you're like you're like reading the book and you're like,
where are you? Are you watching me? Did you just get in my brain?
He gives like this actionable steps of like, hire for this first. Why are you doing admin work for yourself when it costs X amount of dollars an hour? And when you start with mine and you go, hey, why am I doing that? It starts to make a whole lot of sense. So Stacy did bring up the super doer thing, which came down from Alicia. Yeah. When I sat and thought about it, I think all great entrepreneurs are super doers, and that's okay.
Yes.
But you cannot stay a super doer. Like Pokemon, we must evolve. Sorry, had to bring it up.
Well, we'll have to tie back at the end why you brought up Pokemon. I know why you brought that up.
We must evolve. We must go through an evolution. And so the super doer stage is going to get your business off the ground. Part of why we're able to start businesses is because we can do all the things and do them well. And then when you're evolving, you start being the person, because you could do all the things, you can at least check and balance if they're being done well. You hire to make sure somebody else can do them well, but you can make sure no one's pulling the wool over your eyes. And so that's the next evolution. But ultimately, you want to be working on your business and not in your business. And that's easier said than done, because even of moments of scaling now to this day, there are times where I have to work in my business this week. And that's okay, because I don't have somebody who's funding my company other than me. And I'm scaling quickly. And listen, could I get investors and make my life easier? Yes. But I told you, I love the learning process. I am addicted to entrepreneurship. I'm addicted to the journey. I want to learn this for myself. And if it means struggling a little and putting my head down for a couple of weeks while I scale and hire and get the infrastructure in place, and then I can sit back and go, okay, let's get back to working on the business. Well, so be it. And that's okay.
And growth doesn't happen in comfort, right? Growth only does happen in the discomfort. And watching you go through that evolution, when we were met, I think you were really in the thick of being a super doer and being in the business. And it's been so fun over these past 3 years to watch you evolve. And it is such a difficult process for everyone. There's grief involved. There's loss of identity. There's so many things that make it not the easiest process.
Big sacrifice, really. I mean, especially as a young mom, especially as a new mom, not so young anymore, as a new mom again to a baby girl, and then having my other kiddos, it's like, when we hit scale mode, I frequently have to tell my partner, like, I gotta put my head down. Like, I need you to hold down the fort. I gotta put my head down. I'm gonna try and work around these things, but it's late nights, early mornings, and it's making sense of things and having conversations of, systems and what you can put in place and trying to clean up new problems, because business is that. It's like, okay, I finally got it. Okay, we're scaling again. And then you're like, oh, now I need a totally different system to manage this. And we're at a different threshold, so we can afford more. And this is going to be needed. And so that consistent growth. And then there's things along the way. Like, I'm sitting in a completely different location because my business level internet went out for the area.
Yes.
So there's just rolling with the punches. And it's like, people who get frazzled by those things, those are the ones that are the first ones to go. Like, you have to almost just go, of course my internet's out on a day where I come to calls, and then it's problem solving.
Yeah, it makes me think of, and I'm blanking on his name, so I'll have to think of it when you're talking later, is there's a term, relentless solution focus, that I did not coin, versus problem-centered thinking. And I think the best entrepreneurs are the ones that can be relentless solution focused. And obviously you are that. And, you brought up the family. I think sometimes it's situational too. Like, you having, so for those of you listening who don't know Hayden personally, you were a family of 4 children. And then, now you are a family of 5 children. And so, not only is she killing it with her marketing agency, but, here little me with 1 child, I'm like, whew, she has 4 boys, 1 girl, and 1 is under 1. So, for those listening, I think sometimes it's the situational thing. I'm sure having your daughter definitely maybe brought things to light and pushed you. I know you were heading in the direction of letting go of being a super doer, but I would imagine that sort of pushed you even more so.
100%. And you're spot on, because you see that there are certain things that our roles as mothers just can't be replaced by another parent. Like, I am lucky that I have a great partner. He does a great job. Like, she loves her dad, and that's awesome on that. But like, there are times where she will get fussy because she just needs me, and I have to be available for that. And so that time gets carved out because that's priority. But it does mean that you're pushing. I mean, like, I'll be very honest, because we're in scale mode, like, I'm up till usually about 1 o'clock. Just and it's my own problem, because there's really not stuff that needs to get done today. It's that I am an entrepreneurial thinker, and instead of dragging it out over several months for it to get done, I would rather just push it really hard into like a month and a half and go, this is all get done now. And then everything gets easy again, because that's just how I operate. I'm a head down, get it done, make the sacrifices, get to the next level, everybody wins. And so, when you have children though, and they're your priority, they're your why. Like when you sit for a minute, it's so easy to get absorbed by what you're trying to build for yourself or what the next level is, or even your own financial stability, right? Like what you're creating and how you're able to afford things. But if I miss everything in the process and tomorrow I wake up and I have that moment of like, okay, if I didn't have the business today, what would I be most upset about? And it's like missing out on my time with my family. So it's like, you don't ever want to let it overwhelm you or envelop you to a place where you forget about your why.
Yeah. Well, and going back to your Pokemon reference, I think this story is
more thing. Oh my gosh. Okay. Do you want me to tell?
I mean, I want people to understand why you made this random Pokemon. I think that this is a perfect example of you not only killing it in business, but somehow, some way finding the ability to kill it as a mother too.
So I have one of my children, my son, Rigel, is super introvert, and he's been through a whole lot of stuff. And I've been trying to encourage him in order to create community himself, cultivate community himself, that he needs to create it, right? It's easier to create a community around things that you already know about yourself and your own identity than it is to try and find a new community and infiltrate it. And when you're new to that stuff, sometimes the easier place to start is starting it yourself. And then having someone, a mom like me, to back it so that it's guaranteed to get awesome marketing, then lots of people joining it. So I convinced him, I said, why don't you take the step, pick something you love, which is Pokemon, and why don't you go to the school and petition them to get the club started? And sure enough, he did. And I was so proud of him because it was a huge step for him to go and petition the school and get Pokemon Club. And he was proud of himself. He's calling me from school. Well, unfortunately, there were no teachers that would support the club. And my son comes home in tears, and there's no solution because there's never ever been a parent that gets fingerprint clearance, brought on as a temporary teacher who has to come once a week to teach the club and then also market and all the things. So of course, while my son sat here crying and telling me the story, I said, I'll do it. And he was like, you will? And I was like, yeah, I've got lots of time for Pokemon Club once a week on Mondays, my busiest day, for sure. So they sent me something after he went in and asked, and they said, yeah, because they know me. They said, you're going to be the first parent we've ever allowed to teach at the school. You need fingerprint clearance. You need this and all this stuff. And I was like, more stuff? I have lots of time to do, for sure. And you have to market it, meaning we had to create posters for the school. So of course I bought all sorts of cool graphics. We made mascot. We took the mascot at the school and we made it into life-size Pokemon cards, and we put them up school. And so it got tons of people who were in it, and it doubled the next week. And then I was in charge of prizes and activities and trivia and all this stuff. So each week I plan a Pokemon Club curriculum, and I am the Pokemon Master Chief of the Pokemon Club.
It reminds me of that quote that I've heard people say, like, Beyonce has the same 24 hours in the day as you do. That's what I think about with you. Like you are similar.
Doing all the things.
Doing all the things, and you're finding the time. And if it's important, we find a way. Well, I could talk to you for hours, and you're such an inspiration. And you really put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, right? You do it, and you go in and you do right by people. You are one of the most generous, supportive people I know. And like I said, I've only met you once in person, and you have showed up for me. You have showed up for my employees in ways that most people don't. And I think that people forget how important that is. And I really believe that's a piece of why you're so successful, is because
don't make me cry, because I will. I do. I love and respect you so much. I'm so blessed. I appreciate so much that when you really stay aligned like this, you meet other people like this. And you're right, like in person, we really only met once, but like I consider you one of my closest friends. I mean, we talk about everything. I mean, there's really nothing off the table, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I feel very, very blessed to be somebody who has come in contact with so many incredible people, but that my real core community has women like you that I'm just like so blown away by. And it's inspiring for me to be surrounded by women that I have such a deep respect for, because that's how I know I'm in the right place.
Yes. Well, okay. I'm pulling it back together. Well, staying on track and trying to stay on script, so to speak, everyone needs to have a signature question. So my signature question, I inspired by Sarah Blakely. So, what would you put on your coffee mugs for a woman that they can read every day to start their day correct?
So this is one that I actually have mentioned to you before, and this is something that I've started to live by, and a lot of my perfectionist friends out here will appreciate this. Done is better than perfect. It has given me so much peace to think about that. And I remind myself every day, because when you are a perfectionist, you will get in your own way. I try and get my team members to do this. Being a creative mind, we're always wanting to fix things. But the reality is you can't see the results of your efforts unless you put it out there. And that doesn't mean go off half-cocked. You still need to put effort into things. But if you get to a point where you're wrestling with something, like just get it done. Done is better than perfect. And I do that in my motherhood too, right? Like I can't be perfect at everything. I have to give myself some grace, but I can do my best and I can get it done. And at the end of the day, they're going to look back and remember that their mom showed up. They're not going to care whether or not their mom was perfectly prepped. And if everything was a dream and their sandwiches were cut into little dino shapes, as long as they felt good and you got it done. Done is better than perfect.
Oh, that's so good. I'm definitely getting a coffee mug with that. So I'm sure people listening are inspired by you and want to get to know you better. So how can they follow along and tune in to all the cool things you're up to and or hire you? Not that you have right
now. So I'm on LinkedIn, Hayden Merryn Van Hulzen. LinkedIn's great for like all the professional stuff. If you want to follow along in my daily life, I am on Instagram for both my business and my personal. I think it's Hayden Merryn with 3s for the E's. I think my actual name was taken by someone who was trying to take my name, actually. So I'll have to figure that out at some point. But we've made a brand of it anyway. And then also HVH Marketing. So HVH Marketing is my business, and you're welcome to follow me on any of those. I mean, that's one of the easiest places to kind of get first access and to just talk. I would love to meet all of you. Please connect, say hi. I'm really the kind of person who I like to, in my community, I like to be really active and talking to people and seeing how I can help and how we have synergy, and it makes for a really fun time.
Yes. And you have great conversations going on your personal Instagram, whether it's business related, motherhood. There's always great book recommendations. So there's always a lot of fun stuff happening on your Instagram. So I encourage you guys to follow. Well, Hayden, it is a joy to have an excuse to get to see you. I love you and love seeing you, and look forward to future conversations. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Bye, Stace.
Bye.